What's the best way to deal with grief, Zeus?
Just talk about it.
Welcome to ZZ Talks review of WandaVision, episode 8, the penultimate episode. Yeah, man, I think WandaVision is doing something that Game of Thrones did really well, which is really deliver on that second to last episode of the season. I've been saying for a while now that episode 5 was my favorite. I think I have a new favorite off the bat. I know we don't usually start with the actual review. We usually do a recap, but off the bat, I'm gonna say this is my favorite of the season. What are your immediate thoughts on it before we get to the recap?
Well, when you said it reminds you of Game of Thrones, I was gonna be like, you mean last season was gonna be a complete disappointment? But anyway, actually, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I really liked this episode. So we're doing the review now. I really liked this episode, but I didn't like where it was in the order of the season, and I can explain that later on after we do the recap.
Okay.
I love the episode. I just don't like where it is in the season.
You think from a narrative perspective, it could have come earlier, or you feel like, or you wish there were more?
I honestly think that what could have happened is. By the way, if you're listening, remember spoiler.
Spoiler, yeah, it's gonna be spoilers. So okay, yeah,
so,
I was gonna get the little review in and then say spoilers, but might as well, right? Okay, spoilers.
Go watch WandaVision and then come back.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I just feel like a lot of the parts that could have happened, like the whole, the backstory, so first of all, I love this because it was a complete backstory of everything, right? It was a backstory to her actual story. Before Age of Ultron, Wanda,
okay.
Yeah, it's a backstory of her story before Age of Ultron. Oh, that's a good point that you asked whose backstory, because we also get a little bit of Agatha's backstory in this one too, right? But it was a backstory of Wanda pre-WandaVision, or is it pre-Wanda? Yeah, pre-Age of Ultron and pre-WandaVision. So you kind of get like a complete backstory. So I thought the writing was this one should be one of the ones that they submit for best writing in a limited series, because the writing on this one was on point. Like I said, I'm not a huge, and I can explain a little bit further later on, I'm not a huge fan of where it was. I feel like you could have snuck in some of the backstory in like earlier episodes, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it was the narrative was the whole, this is the backstory. I think what's the title of the episode? Isn't it?
I don't remember.
But it's a little bit of a play on this, so look it up, because it's a little bit of play on or backstory thing, because I think it's something like previously on or
yes, I think you're correct. I think previously on,
previously on. So I get, so it's the title, right? The title means that this is a whole backstory. I did like that nobody else was involved but Wanda and Agatha and Vision, I guess, but it was a Wanda centric episode, and I actually really did enjoy that, because you didn't end up missing in this episode. You don't miss Jimmy. You don't miss Darcy or Monica. You don't miss any of the other characters, because this is like this one. You know how we talked about one of those episodes should be the submission for Olsen to do the best. This one should be this
one for sure.
This one should.
So I know you said you're going to explain later on, but you did kind of drop a bit of a tidbit as to why you don't like its placement in the season. You said that they should have dropped bits and pieces of the backstory throughout the season. I think they did, and I think not only did they do that, they've done it throughout the MCU. And before I get into my explanation of that, I think for anyone who's coming into this show without first being an MCU fan, first of all, I didn't know people like you exist, so welcome. And secondly, I think you're getting a front row seat into why people say Kevin Feige is like the most lucrative producer in Hollywood. It's like, I don't want to say he's the best producer, but he kind of is. And it's because there's a sense.
He kind of is. He is.
Yeah.
He is so good at being a movie producer that he ended up taking over the TV part too.
Right. Yeah. So there's a sense as people who view the MCU, and I've started going back and watching some other movies too, out of order, but we are going to be watching in order and reviewing. But there's a sense for people who watch the MCU that it almost feels like no scene is wasted, right? And there's
Yeah.
some things, there's some callbacks to scenes that seemed like throwaway scenes when they first happened, and they called it back in this episode, and it was, I was watching it, and it was beautiful. It was really beautiful to me. One of those that comes to mind, and we'll get to it in the recap, is the one where she's sitting on the bed and Vision comes through the door, comes through the wall, and it said something about, "Oh, am I intruding? Oh no, I didn't mean to intrude." And then she's like, "Didn't you?" And then he seems like
It's a callback to Civil War.
it seems lost about it, and then she tells him to come in. So yeah, it's called back to Civil War because she was having that convo with Captain America, and then Vision comes through the wall, and she was like, "We talked about this." You
Yeah.
never actually saw them talk about it till now, which is like 5 years after Civil War came out.
Wow, you're right. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like there's always this feeling like everything is connected, and that's
Yeah.
what keeps you invested in
Yeah,
it.
so the backs are all the connection. That's all. Yeah. So I would say the only thing, and we will probably talk about this when we do our deep dive into Age of Ultron. Around Age of Ultron, Iron Man is when you could kind of see that there was a bit of, but that was also when there was that power struggle of for Kevin Feige versus, was it Jeff Loeb?
Yeah, Jeff Loeb. Yeah.
So there was kind of like a little bit of a power struggle, and then once it was given to Kevin Feige exclusively, he just ran with it. And then, because honestly, after Age of Ultron and Iron Man, you really don't see that many missteps. Maybe one or two that you might find boring compared to other one, but you don't really see any missteps. So you're right about that. But we're not gonna go. Let's not go too deep into praising Kevin Feige, because this is about WandaVision. So let's go ahead. Start. It's gonna be a quick recap because Zino and I have had some technical issues, and we're recording really late. So Daddy got to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So
all right. So quick recap. So we start off where last episode ended. Not really where it ended, because where it ended was with Monica and Pietro, as Agatha called him, at the mid-credit scene. So we still don't know what happened with Monica, because as Zeus mentioned, this was a Wanda and Agatha-centric episode. So where we start is actually with Agatha's backstory in Salem. We see that she's part of a coven, and I don't know what she did wrong, but they wanted to take her out or lock her down or whatever, and she ended up turning their powers against them and draining their souls or their powers.
Which explains why she still looks the same.
That could be.
Well, no, because remember, she also sucks away their life.
Well, yeah, but I didn't know that
that's skeletons, so that means she suck away their age.
Well, I didn't know that.
That's what I got.
Okay, because I thought maybe she's just a witch and therefore she can look young if she wants to. I didn't know that it had to do with.
I don't think all of them. I don't think you're able to do that. I don't know if witches. I don't know the whole witches and MCU kind of thing. I mean, they could probably do anything, but I think that involves spells. So I don't know. But I feel like I'm gonna stick with it because it reminds me of Hocus Pocus, that she sucks out the life of the youth. Their youth keeps it, and that's why she's still young. And then also, it doesn't help that they have an actress that to me is like ageless.
It is Disney, so So they show that quick scene. She saw
Hocus Pocus might be in the MCU, is what Zino was saying.
No, I'm not saying that. Let's get through the recap. All right, so she sucks out their life force, and then they come back to present day, and I particularly like this scene, right, where she's like, Wanda's trying to do her magic, and she's not able to, and Agnes is like telling her, well, obviously you can't do your magic in the room where a witch puts the runes or whatever, like the person who puts the runes does the magic, and yada yada. Like, she's dropping all this witch lore on her, and Wanda doesn't get any of it. And it's like Agatha is like flummoxed by it, because she's seen this person who's clearly who's probably the most powerful witch, but she has no idea she's a witch, and she has no idea what her power is. And she's like, how do you not know this? How do you not know that? Right? So it's like raw talent that Wanda has. So then we kind of get an insight into what Agatha is after, and it's basically trying to get Wanda to expose how she did all of this, because what she did is far beyond what Agatha could do herself, or probably what Agatha has seen other witches do. So in order to to find out how that happened, they go on that journey, right? So, um, as you mentioned earlier, they go back to Sokovia, where Wanda is a kid with Pietro, and
we get the hints of all the shows.
yes, yeah, all the shows. There's I love no, is that I Love Lucy? Yeah, I Love
No, the
Lucy.
Dick Van Dyke.
Bewitched.
So
Dick
there
Van
was an
Dyke. That's what it was.
I Love Lucy cover. So
Yes.
obviously that was episode either that's one or two. There was the Honeymooners too,
Uh,
and then the Dick Van Dyke show, which I still saw. I think that might have Dick Van
I
Dyke show
think Dick
probably
Van
was
Dyke
episode
was number
three.
one. No, 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 no. I think Dick Van Dyke was episode one, and Bewitched. At least the intro to Bewitched was episode two because yeah, yeah, yeah. The intro to Bewitched was episode two
You
because
might be right,
you
yeah.
see
And
the
then I Love
animated
Lucy was
thingy.
episode two, right?
Maybe because they could have done multiple sitcoms
That's
in one
they
episode.
probably did a bunch of them, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we see all those the box sets of all the old shows, and Little Wonder, picking her
Dick
favorite
Van Dyke was
episode.
also the big part was
The beds.
the love part, right? Because their bedroom was the same as Dick Van Dyke's bedroom. They had
Yeah.
separate beds.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're right. The Dick Van, I think it was like you said, it was probably an homage throughout the entire the first
Right.
few episodes. Like all of them were kind of a thing. I did like that they confirmed that one of the episodes, the one where it was Malcolm in the Middle. I love that they confirmed
Yeah.
it.
So yeah, that was also in the DVD set, Malcolm in the Middle. It was a really cute scene, and the thing is, as you're watching it, there was so much dread going through me as I was watching it because I was convinced that this was the scene that Wanda was talking about in Age of Ultron when she said that her family was bombed by a Stark bomb. Well, it was like
Yeah.
yeah, her house was destroyed by a Stark bomb, and then she's watching it. This camera is zooming in on her. She's smiling, and then explosion,
Boom.
and the thing is just so sad. And one thing I found out recently that I'm gonna admit I like saw someone else talking about it. It wasn't like I had a eureka moment. When they were doing the ads in the first two episodes, the first episode had the ad of the toaster,
Mhm.
and there was a beeping sound that no there was a sound that almost sounded like Stark's
Bomb.
thingy, but then there's also the beeping sound. Yeah, apparently on the toaster in that episode that was all without
It said
color.
Stark.
It did say Stark, but in that episode that was all without color, the only thing that had color was there was a red light on the toaster.
Oh
Just like
wow.
the red beeping on that Stark bomb. So I was like, wow, yeah, I know, right?
Man, this writing on the show is that. Sorry, leave that out.
Yeah, so
But
nothing is wasted.
no, but that just shows you how like freaking amazing it really is some good writing.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So yeah, so
Which
the bomb.
actually, real quickly,
Mhm.
people limit a lot of the movies. There's a lot of people who give criticism to the movies that they say the writing is kind of like it doesn't go as deep as it could. But this one does. This show,
Yes.
and I think that's kind of showing where that maybe the shows are the better option for certain stories. For certain stories, not
Yeah, I mean, and we've
we're
talked
not
about it.
removing the movies entirely.
We've talked about it before, where an episodic format gives you a chance to dive deeper into
Yeah.
characters. Because a lot of people who are from just watching from outside, just thinking, oh, it's like people in cosplay and just like flying around like punch. But now you actually get a chance to dive into people's
Yeah.
psyche. So
she's stuck there. What did she say? They were there for 2 days.
she said they're there for 2 days. Yeah, Pietro and Wanda seem to be either stuck under a bed or under rubble. I don't remember, but they were looking at that bomb. They didn't want to move because they thought it was going to blow up. And then Agatha said that, oh, you cast a probability hex on it, which apparently has something to do with how she was able to stop it from going off. They didn't really dive too much into it, but I know that there's ties to that in the comics, and I'm trying to stay away from it so I don't spoil the show for myself. So anyway, so then the next thing they go to is Wanda in a Hydra facility where they're testing out the Loki scepter on her. And apparently they said that the other people who've like gone through this testing before have all died.
Yeah.
And older scientist guy was like, whatever, like just put her in there.
I didn't care.
Yeah, I know. Well, so put her in there. And she didn't die. In fact, she saw this yellow light, and then she saw what looked like a figure of Scarlet Witch through it. I'm guessing someone else in Scarlet Witch costume, like maybe in the MCU, Scarlet Witch is like a thing that's passed down from generation to generation, and there's like a previous
Well,
Scarlet Witch.
that kind of, for me, it kind of reminded me of when the Dark Phoenix in X2
Mm-hmm.
takes over. You remember how we see the silhouette of the Phoenix saving Jean?
Yeah.
Kind of a similar way is this is also the power of the Scarlet Witch, or at least maybe the embodiment of that spirit, kind of protects Wanda in that particular instant. Because the thing is, remember, she's dealing with an Infinity Stone. Infinity Stone is one of the more powerful elements in the entire universe.
So, do you think that imagery or whatever came from within her, or you think it came from the stone?
I think it came from within her.
Okay,
but it's kind of weird,
stone
right?
magnified it or something.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird, I guess, or maybe it did come from, because I've always felt, and I kind of felt this one more in this episode, that a lot of Wanda's power did come from the Infinity Stones.
Yeah,
which is why she was so connected to the story of Vision's Infinity Stone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, I always feel like she was drawn to the Infinity Stones and it might be because of her power.
Yeah, well, it's clear that she had some power prior to the stone. I mean, at least that's
but
what
it enhanced it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it seems from Agatha. Agatha seems to believe that Wanda did a probability hex as a kid, which would mean she already had power, and that's probably why she didn't die from the experimentation with the scepter. But yeah, I think you're right. The Infinity Stone probably magnified her power, or unlocked it. You know, that's a possibility. So anyway, so she goes through there. They do the thingy, and then she falls. Like she just falls there, and the scientists are like looking through the video, and they don't see that moment where she the whole Scarlet Witch thing happens. They just see her fall. Like it skips, kind of like that episode where she would rewrite what was going on and just like skip. Like it was like a jump cut. That's what was happening in the video as well. And they're like, "What's going on?" I felt like that was another callback. And then what she was wearing, how she looked, like how she looked like the girl from The Ring. It was exactly how she looked.
I didn't see that. I saw Wanda from the post credit in
Winter Soldier. Yeah.
Winter Soldier. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was getting to. I was saying that's exactly how she looked.
Now I see
movie.
that The Ring. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So that was their way of tying it back to that, because we know that they were in that Hydra facility, and I know they didn't do any callbacks to Agents of Shield, but I do like how the halfway point of the second season of Agents of Shield was them doing the Theta Protocol, and that was led to by the first half of the season 2 of Agents of Shield, basically finding out where the Hydra location is, and then in Age of Ultron, the Avengers storm Hydra location in the very first scene, if you remember, because of what they. But anyway, that's when it was still tied together, movie and TV show. For some reason, I just had a call back to that in my head. So anyway, so they showed that, and then they jumped to that scene that we talked about earlier, where she's in the bedroom, and Vision comes to talk to her, and this is after the events of Age of Ultron. She's still mourning Pietro. Like you can see that she doesn't want to talk about anything, right? And Vision, is like, well, I read, but he didn't finish the sentence. But obviously, it was going at, I read somewhere that you should talk about your feelings. And she was like, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to see him. And then she describes like being washed over and like trying to get back up and just being constantly washed over, which is like what Monica was saying when she got up after the hex. Because I think we had posited before that Monica and everyone else seems to be feeling Wanda's grief. And Monica was explaining that grief the same way Wanda was just explaining it. Like, I just feel like I can't get up or whatever, and I'm just being washed over by a wave. And man, I wish I could remember word for word what Vision said, but I know when he said it, I was just like, damn, that
That was
is.
a powerful scene.
I
That
was
was a
like, Paul
really powerful
Bettany
scene.
is so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it essentially boiled down to
I've always been alone, so I don't feel the lack. It's all I've ever known. I've never experienced loss because I've never had a loved one to lose. But what is grief, if not love persevering?
it was great. But like you said, the writing was great in this episode. And then it jumps forwards finally to after the events of Endgame.
Yeah.
And Monica walks into Swords. Wanda walks into Swords to go get Vision's body because she wants to bury him.
She wants to bury him.
That's all she wanted. She just wanted to bury him, and
like poor girl wants to have some type of what's a closure. I mean,
yeah,
the whole entire episode, you're realizing that freaking Wanda's life is freaking tragic.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
And that's all she wanted. She wanted to go and bury him. She gets into Sword, and it's so great how you can just like edit something to look bad. Because when we first saw that scene where she blows the doors open, this is when Haywood was trying to. Is it Hayward or Haywood?
Haywood.
Haywood. Okay, this is when Haywood was trying to tell Jimmy Woo and Darcy and Monica that she's a terrorist. Yeah, and he was showing them videos of her like blasting through the doors and going and breaking stuff and stealing. No, the guy said down the left, down or whatever, and then he was like, "Wait, I'll buzz you," and she was like, "I know the way." Something like I can get through myself.
I
She
don't need
busted,
to buzz in.
yeah, she busted the door open, but it wasn't like she was storming there to like attack.
Yeah.
She goes to his office.
Because they edited it for her showing her walking, and then you're thinking when you're watching this episode, you're thinking about that. You're like, oh, she's about to blow that door open.
She's about to start attacking people.
Like, sir, I'd like to go in, please. It's like her being polite, her following protocol. Then she
like
does that.
Episode 4 or episode 5, whatever episode that was, looks a lot different now after this episode. So she gets to Haywood. They start talking, and Haywood, I get his point, but man, that dude doesn't have any bedside manner. Like, he's just like, I mean, he's a $3 billion sentient weapon. Like, we can't let you go with him.
Yeah, we can't let you go bury him.
And then the worst part was when she was like, I just want to bury him, or something about he's my soulmate or yada yada. And then he said, well, he's not yours, right? Like, like, come on, like, have a little bit of, like, say it in a little better way. I don't know. So anyway, she busts through the glass, which you also see in the video from episode 4 that looks like she's a terrorist. And she goes on there, and he's like, just like, let her.
You know what that scene made me think of?
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of, you remember? Did you ever watch Machete?
I didn't watch it, but I know of it.
Well, there's a scene where one of the goons for the bad guys, Machete just killed everybody, and then he's like, he just throws his gun. He's like, I quit. And I'm just waiting for one of these days where one of those soldiers is just like, you know what, man, screw it. Look,
I'm not gonna shoot at her. I know she can.
Because I'm not gonna beat you. I'm not gonna beat. So what am I doing? So
she can turn my insides out.
Still have people holding up guns to these freaking subatomic weapons on 2 feet.
Yeah, I mean, she's like a nuke herself. So
exactly.
So he's like, just stand down. So she stands down. She looks at Vision's body, and then she leaves. And I was like, wait a second, she didn't take the body? So she leaves, she drives through Westview, because she had this folio or this envelope in her car. And it was, man, it was left by Vision, and it was a plot of land that he had bought prior to freaking the children of Thanos invading Earth.
Yeah.
It's like a callback to that scene in Infinity War, where he's like, let's like stay together or whatever. Whereas it was basically like proposing to her or whatever.
Yeah.
And and basically he had already planned out this life for them, right? He bought this plot of land in Westview. So she saw the envelope. She's going to drive to Westview to where the plot of land is, and then you see all the townies, uh,
Oh boy.
the Deborah Jo Rupp from episode 1,
Yeah.
the funniest guy, which is Phil, the one with the
Yeah.
mailman, everything. And you just see that the regular townspeople, she's looking at them that this is a nice town. Like in her head, she's thinking this would have been a great place to make a life.
Wasn't it torn down a little bit though? The town was a little bit torn down.
No, the town was fine. It was the plot of land seemed torn
was messed up. Yeah, I know that was
yeah.
messed up.
Yeah. And then she goes there and then she opens the thing, she reads it, and then he said it was something about to start a life with or whatever, and it was the heart symbol from the calendar in episode 1. And God, so then I think all of it just washed over her at the same time, and she just like she got on her knees and just like she was like sobbing, and it was like a burst of energy, and that's what created the hex. And that burst of energy, just like Age of Ultron, when Pietro died, and she like did that and like destroyed all the Ultrons in like a certain amount of vicinity from her. Same kind of thing, but at a much grander scale. Now it's like taking up a whole town.
But she's not. It's also a little bit of an evolution because she's not destroying.
She's creating,
she's building, and creating.
Ooh,
so it's a bit of an evolution in her character. And I'm not gonna lie, you just made me realize that that heart was the same heart from the calendar. I was like, yo, man, the stuff that they did here, like, is pretty freaking great. And then I got confused into the mid-credit scene, which we'll talk about in a second, right? The post-credit scene about Vision.
About the body.
Remember, Hayward, whatever.
Hayward, yeah.
We can go back to Jackass if you want, but he stated, I want his body back.
Yeah. Well,
then you see that she never took it, and she built him.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, we'll touch on that in the mid credits. Yeah. So yeah, because we're almost at the end anyway. So we see how she created Westview, and so now Agnes has her answer, and by the time Wanda is done, so Wanda is still in color, but then everything else is in black and white, and she sees Vision being created, which I realize now, I think that moment was in one of the trailers, because I've seen something like that before.
It was.
You see Vision being created, and he knows who she is, but obviously he doesn't know anything prior. He just calls her Wanda, and then it turns back to her, and she's in black and white and smiling, and it's like the happiest you've seen her. Yeah, and that's why I think Elizabeth Olsen is such a great actress, because we in this episode we saw her in the lowest of lows, and in that moment you could see that she was
high.
She was just so happy. This is all she wants. She just wants this happy life. So
all the girl wants is a freaking the house with picket fence.
Yeah, just a love story, right? So so Agatha, like, she gets it now. She was like, okay, so it was the grief that caused this, and she's like, this is she's outside now holding the boys hostage, in like a witch costume, like flying. I mean, man, Catherine Hahn, I know we've said it a lot. She was knocking on all cylinders this episode. Even I love the line about the accents.
She cracked me up when she's like, she was making fun of Pietro for being loud. She's like, it's like, we're right here,
yeah. And, or when she said, man, that accent really comes and goes, doesn't it? So she's holding the kids hostage, and she tells her that this is chaos energy. She said some other things, and then she said, Wanda, you're the Scarlet Witch.
You're the Scarlet Witch.
And then boom. And you know how we talk about no scene is wasted, and we talked about in our review of episode 4 that Haywood made that comment about how they've never called her Scarlet Witch before, that she has it's how she has no nicknames or whatever.
And you're the one that, and you mentioned that they've never called her
Scarlet Witch before. that wasn't a throwaway scene. Him doing that, he was doing that to remind the audience that we know that you know her as Scarlet Witch from the comic books and all that
Yeah.
stuff. We've never actually called her that, so that's gonna play a part. And now,
what's the name of it? What's the term from Crime and Punishment? Trotsky's gun, or Pavlov's gun. Or anyways, it's like the whole like Pavlov's gun, right? Isn't it Pavlov's gun? I think it's the name of the term where there's a gun introduced and they talk about it, and they're like, you don't hear about it through the whole entire book until the very end, where it's an important piece. I just know this because they talked about it in my class. I have the book. I need to reread it because I didn't pay attention when I read it. Yeah. But it's basically saying in literature, you don't waste anything you're really describing, right? Like when you talk about it, it's going to be brought back. There's going to be a reason for it to be mentioned, right? Similar here, it's like the show was like, we're not going to just say stuff for the hell of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
everything is either going to be a callback or a call forward, if you will. Heck, even the whole Jimmy Woo card trick thing that we didn't mention when we reviewed.
Yeah, we didn't mention it because
that was a callback to Ant-Man 2, right? So it's so good, it's so brilliant. So anyway, so it calls the Scarlet Witch. They go to the credits. We didn't get is it a standby? What was the message that usually comes across? Prepare the stand. It is okay.
Yeah, I think it's standby or it's that whole,
whatever. I'll put it in a GIF probably at this point. Yeah. So we didn't get that message. It goes to the credits, and then we get a mid-credit scene, which is, as Zeus has alluded to earlier, they say something about we can finally turn it on, and it seems all we needed was the power from the source, which is that another thing that's never wasted. When Wanda, they attacked her with the drone, and she came and she threw it, and she was like, "Here's your drone back," and it still had that power around it. They used the power from that drone
to do what though?
To turn on Vision, but he looks very different. It's like he's like gray or white or whatever.
Well, they have to rebuild him.
But so they were
rebuilding. No, but don't you remember when they were trying to peel off some of the stuff? They were scratching off his skin, his color.
I see.
No scene is wasted, sir.
Yeah, that's true. So what was I gonna say?
Turn them on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So they turned them on with using that as a power source, and it seems that was Hayward's goal all the time. We had misinterpreted it and thought he meant that she took his body. Especially when he showed that video, it seemed like she took his body and brought him into Westview so that she can bring him back to life. But instead, she had literally recreated Vision, and they're watching this show and being like, "That's Vision. Like she did it. We need to know how she did it." And they were going and they wanted, but then it makes me wonder, why did they try to attack her or try to kill her? Or wouldn't you want to find out from her how she created Vision? But anyway, they wanted whatever source it was that would create Vision, and they got it. They finally got it with that, with that drone.
Well, remember, he also did mention in that scene where they're together, you could always reboot him or something along those lines.
No, it was because Hayward just assumed that she can bring people back to life.
Yeah, she was like, "You can we don't want you to reboot him, or you could just reboot him." Yeah. He mentions rebooting, so
yeah, and she was like, "That's not why I'm here. I just want to bury him."
Yeah.
I just want to bury my husband or whatever she said.
Well, you can't bury a $3 billion.
Yeah, what a jackass. So anyway, so that's the recap. That's everything that happened. So we've already done a bit of a review up front. Is there anything you want to add to it before you give your score?
Like I said, it's a great episode. Made me realize that Scarlet Witch and Vision are pretty much the MCU's Romeo and Juliet. Like, it is a tragic love story.
Yeah,
like, it really is.
They're pretty much the only love story. I mean, there is Tony and Pepper, and we
actually, I think all. So you know what? Maybe hopefully that means that there is going to be a payoff for them, because all of them have been tragic, but they pay off. Tony and Pepper, they're not together for a long time because of Tony's, having to be Iron Man.
It's so
Captain
funny.
America.
sorry. Just before we go further, it's so funny you say they're not together for a long time. The only time that they actually do get together is when the rest of the world is going through this grieving period between
Yeah.
Infinity War and Endgame. Those 5 years, that's the time
That's
together.
when they finally they sat down, they
Yeah.
made a family.
Everyone
But
else's grief is their peace. So
yeah, and
anyway,
then same thing with
Cap and
Captain America and Agent Carter.
mm.
Like they were they were separated for don't know how long they were separated,
well,
right? Because
for her it wasn't very long, but for him it was 70 years, even though most of it was in ice. But yeah, it wasn't very long for her.
yeah, so anyway, so maybe that means that the payoff will be there for
For
them.
Wanda.
They've already announced the time slot. The time it's gonna be like 50 minutes episode. The last
Okay, that's
episode.
good. That's good.
So
We need a longer episode, man. This is
yeah, so
good.
hopefully, because I gotta ask you before you give a review. I know you really like the episode, but does it still feed a little bit into your fear of they're gonna of a possibility of rushing the whole villain thing, or do you think this kind of care?
I actually liked this. I like the pacing of it, and I think because of the reveals, I didn't feel like it was one of those, okay, let's drop a bomb on them with no pun intended, Wanda. But yeah, let's drop a bomb with the second and last episode and just reveal a bunch of, like, it felt like there were notes of it like throughout, and like this is like, hey, all this stuff that we were doing, here is why. Here is why we had the TV show format. Here's why we had the heart there, or why we had, so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
I liked it.
All right, cool. No, I was just wondering because I'm also like, is the last episode going to be like her and Vision fight? Because I remember I did say that I do see that. I see that her and Vision fighting, but I thought it was more along the lines of Vision, the one that she created, fighting her and saying, "Hey, you got to let me go." Now it looks like it's going to be. Is it going to be evil Vision? It's going to be, you know what I mean? Is it going to be military style Vision?
So to your question about dropping in something late in the game, that is probably a point of concern. This white Vision or gray Vision drop in literally after the second to last episode, because it was in the post mid credits scene. So yeah, there might be some concern that they don't deliver on that. But
you know
fingers
what?
crossed.
50 minutes. That's usually how long like the final battle and then the resolution in the movies end up being anyway. So
Yeah,
it might not be that bad. I'm gonna tell you right now. The pacing for the episodes, some of them have been a little bit like I mentioned it in the last episode. It was like it dragged on. It felt like it was dragging on a little bit too much, but then they took care of it with the final minutes or whatever.
That was episode 3 for me.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Episode 3 had a little bit of that too, and it's kind of like, but if you don't realize, like when you realize later on when you're watching episodes, you're like, it doesn't feel like the 30 minutes though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it goes by so
you get
fast.
that. Please stand by, or whatever the word, the sentence is. You get it. You're like, what? It's over already?
Yeah, I was like, I just started this 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So there might be the possibility of a rush inning, but maybe the way they're doing it, I couldn't kind of trust that they're gonna do okay with it. But
and we know that since it's the MCU, it's always going to be tied to some other show or some other movie. I really hope
it's going to be Doctor Strange too. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I really hope there is some resolution, not just like, oh, to find out what happens, you got to watch this. No, you got to resolve this story at least a bit, and then say, okay, continue on with her, and
Yeah.
So all right, so that review.
Final review. Like I said, the placement of the episode, I could kind of dealt with some of the stuff being done a little earlier, but the episode overall. But I won't let that affect the episode overall. The episode overall, I'm gonna go ahead and give it based on the writing, based on Elizabeth Olsen's acting, as well as Catherine's her acting, and Paul Bettany. Jesus Christ, the acting period.
Paul Bettany is so good.
He is. And the crazy part about his is he had less time than usual than other episodes, right? Based on the acting, I'm gonna have to give this episode an 8.5. Like just as a standalone episode by itself, an 8.5. It really is. It's damn good.
Yeah. I wonder if this episode will be as powerful for people who watched the MC, because there's some people who watch the MCU over the span of like a year, like just binged it or whatever. I wonder if it's as powerful for them as it is for people who like watched from the beginning, from like 2008, and like went through that journey like we did,
Yeah.
like year after year. I was gonna say
Ours was like a 10-year investment, so
yeah,
you know.
but I feel like that 10-year investment does make you hold on to that baby a little tighter.
Yeah,
I I give the episode a 9 out of 10. It is
I
my
figured
favorite
that.
episode of the season. It's so good for an MCU fan, to get these callbacks, even in the previously on WandaVision, and they're showing scenes from Infinity War where Thanos is taking out the Mind Stone and all that stuff, or where Wanda kills him, and God, like it was so well done. There was so much attention being paid, and them just telling you that we know you care about these characters and we're gonna do it justice. I love the episode. I give it a 9 out of 10. My best of the season so far.
Yeah, and I would say right now, even though we'll probably have a review of overall afterwards, I'm gonna say that this show, like they've proven why they gave Kevin Feige over for shows as well, and how much richer it'll actually make. Because if you think about, that's one thing about some of the movies, they're limited, right? And some of the fleshing a lot of the stuff out. Because one of the biggest complaints was when they first started out was that their villains were,
One-dimensional.
one-dimensional. Now there's a possibility of them creating, like, because what show proved that is true that the villains were one-dimensional was Kilgrave and Jessica Jones. When that's still one of the greatest villains in the entire MCU.
Yeah,
kind of proves that, hey, this show is gonna. So why you haven't watched the movies yet, I don't know.
if you're jumping into this, there's a lot you're missing, by the way.
Yeah. So why just go ahead and knock them out. Look, you're not gonna be able to catch Incredible Hulk, which I wouldn't be shocked if they eventually do something to create a callback to that as well. Eventually, and the Spider-Man ones can't catch them on Disney Plus, but you can find it somewhere else. Buy it for $3 or something like that at the freaking $5 bin at Walmart.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're buying it at $3 at the $5 bin.
Buy it for $3 at the $5 bin. But yeah, okay. So that's gonna wrap up our review. We really love the episode. Come back for our finale talk as well as our review of the season as a whole. And yeah, thanks for watching. It's a wrap.
Peace.